When somebody responds to marketing, they're ready at that point in time. They don't want to wait a week. Life will get in the way. Something will happen. So when you do marketing, you've got to have a schedule that allows people to get in within a day or two. Now, when you're actively getting new patients into your practice, you've got to create a schedule that allows you to get those patients in within a week or two. Now, if you're not doing that, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting the opportunities in your practice. And then that translates same when you get to the dentistry that you want to do. We've been misled to believe that dentistry, more specifically the dental business, has to be complicated. Dentistry can be simple, and dentistry should be simple. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Dentistry Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarun Agarwal, and this week I am not joined by my lovely co-host, Meredith Cooper-Jones. Hopefully she is having a baby, or she is taking care of her baby and it's all healthy and everything. But hopefully all of that goes well. So we don't have reviews to read for you, and we don't have any of that stuff. But this week, what I want to talk to you about is the number one ability is your availability. And so in dentistry, your ability or your best ability is your availability, and that really translates into your schedule. So if you're a busy practice and you're trying to grow your revenue and get control of your practice, it really revolves around your schedule. Your schedule, it is what is holding you back. And I want to talk about that this week. So let's get into this week's episode and let's get into that a little bit more. So how did this topic come up, and what made me want to talk about this week? And really, it has to do with sports. I enjoy sports. I'm not a raving fan or anything like that, but I do enjoy sports. And a couple of people have been on the Sports Center and the YouTube and stuff like that when it comes to sports. And one is Anthony Davis. And many people say Anthony Davis is an amazing basketball player, maybe one of the top 5 basketball players in the NBA. But the problem is that he's hardly, or that he's not going to be available all season long. And so what that means is no matter how great someone is, no matter how, amazing they are, if they're not available, they're really doing you no good. And then the other person that came to mind was Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. He's trying to go through a contract negotiation, and the Baltimore Ravens, for whatever reason, good or bad, don't seem to be ready to give him a long-term deal, and certainly not a 100% guaranteed contract, because there have been very few, if any, season that Lamar Jackson has been available the entire season. In fact, the last 2 seasons, he's missed the last 5 or 6 games of the year, and the playoffs which is when you need your star player the most. So how and why does that translate into dentistry? It doesn't matter how good of a dentist you are. It doesn't matter how many patients you have coming in. It doesn't matter what clinical skill sets you have. If you're not available for your patients, or when your patients want to come in, then what good are those skill sets? And this came up in a recent office hours we were doing with our mastermind group, and Eric was talking about how he had a patient that came in that didn't want to take photos because he thought they were going to cost money. And then he said, no, the photos are free. It's just part of what we do. And he took these photos, and the next thing you know, she decided that she wanted to have several cosmetic treatments done to enhance her smile. And he said, you know what, I've got time next week to get that taken care of. She says, perfect. I'd love to get that done next week. And what that reminded me of was Eric has these skills. It reminded me of several things. One, the importance of photographs. Okay. When somebody says they don't want to take photographs, maybe it's not that they don't want to take them. They assume they're costing something, or you're trying to sell them something. So just to alleviate their fears when that comes up. And then 2, schedule availability. That is the most important ability. And so the misbelief we have, or we've been led to believe in dentistry, is that we should be booked out for months, and that's a sign of a busy and healthy practice. And I couldn't disagree anymore with that. In a perfect world, I don't want to be booked out more than a week at a time, because when people come in, I want to be seeing them. I want to be able to see them very quickly. I want to have availability. Now, let me qualify that a little bit. Now, being booked out only a week at a time is also predicated on having a good new patient flow, having a good consultation flow. If you're really into more complex and comprehensive dentistry, you got to have the consults coming in. You got to have the new patient opportunities coming in. So that's a predication on everything that we're talking about. If you've built a practice that's just built on one single tooth dentistry, doing one tooth at a time on a majority of recall patients with very few new patient exams, then continue to do what you're doing. Things aren't going to change, but just continue to do what you're doing. But if you're like, hey, I've gone to Kois, I've gone to Spear, I've gone to 3D Dentist, I've gone wherever, and I want to do more of that type of dentistry, then what I'm telling you is that your schedule is probably the main thing that's holding you back, and that's your availability. That starts on the front end. How long does it take to get your new patient in? Can you see them within a week or two? How long does it take to get a consultation in? Can you get them in within a day or two? When somebody responds to marketing, they're ready at that point in time. They don't want to wait a week. Life will get in the way. Something will happen. So when you do marketing, you've got to have a schedule that allows people to get in within a day or two. Now, when you're actively getting new patients into your practice, you've got to create a schedule that allows you to get those patients in within a week or two. Now, if you're not doing that, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting the opportunities in your practice. And then that translates same when you get to the dentistry that you want to do. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, well, my patients will wait. They're happy to wait. And sure, they'll wait because there's no other choice. But more than likely, if you're in a competitive market, that patient may start looking for another dentist or looking who else provides that service in the area. And that's how you start losing patients. And here's the other reality of it, is you may not even know that your patients are leaving because you didn't know when they scheduled and your schedule was quickly filled up with something else. And so the example I want to use to kind of prove my point is, for most of us, or many of us, we come in on days off to work in bigger cases. And it's our most productive day of the week or of the month. Oftentimes, it's a day that there's nothing pre-scheduled so that we have complete flexibility to get somebody in. Now, what if we took that same approach more often throughout the week in our practice? Then we would have more availability to work in the patients that are looking for high value treatment, things that we enjoy doing, whether that's productive dentistry or not. Sometimes some of the things I enjoy doing aren't productive things. They're just things I enjoy doing and I want to do more of. Having that availability is the number one ability for your practice. So let's talk about an action plan. How can you get this going in your practice? And what I'm going to ask you to do is, I don't want you to remake your schedule quite yet. The time will come for that. But I got to get you to believe and see the results first. So I want you to experiment. I want you to think about what would it look like to just leave 2 hours open on your schedule a few days per week. And then only fill them with high value procedures that you diagnose 3 or 4 days in advance. Now, if you don't get that 2 or 3 hour block filled with 2 days left to go, open it up and let your team have at it. They'll get it filled, I promise you, probably with less productive things. But the reality is that if you have these 2 or 3 hour blocks pre-made on your schedule, you will find a way to fill them with high value procedures, because when you diagnose those things in the chair, you can tell your patients, hey, we happen to have an availability on Thursday of this week. And so what I would probably look at doing if I were in a situation where I'm super busy, I've got amazing training, I want to add implants or grow my implant practice, or I want to do more cosmetic dentistry or whatever it may be, I would start having a 2 or 3 hour window each day, not 2 or 3 1 hour blocks scattered throughout the day. I'm talking about 2 or 3 hours in a row where I would have those pre-blocked, that there's nothing there, and that I keep those open for high value procedures or dentistry I enjoy doing. And what I promise you will happen is they will miraculously fill with those high value procedures and or dentistry you enjoy doing. And then it will not affect your production, because if you give it 2 days, your team will then have the opportunity to fill it. And when you do fill it, instead of filling it with today's patients, I want you to go out 3, 4, 5 weeks and bring patients forward so that you can create availability in your schedule for the future, because that's how you get things for the future as well. Now, some of your patients don't want to come in right away, and that's okay. We always want to give them the option that we're making available that we can see you pretty quickly. Now, some of you may have a belief that your patients will think you're not busy, you're not good enough at what you do, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Here's the reality. How many of us, when we're ready to buy anything, whether it's a car, whether it's groceries, whether it's anything, we want it that day, the day we make the decision, the day we make the commitment, we want to get seen and get it taken care of as soon as possible. The longer we wait, the more chances we allow for our patients to change their mind, to find another dentist, to get talked out of things, whatever it may be. Okay? So I want you to leave with the message that the number one ability is your availability, and that your schedule is what is holding your busy practice back from growing and being more productive and doing more of the dentistry you want to do. The day you get control of your schedule, the day you start experimenting with your schedule, is the day you take that first step towards regaining control of your practice and making it more of what you want and not what other people want. I'm Dr. Tarun Agarwal with the Dentistry Made Simple podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If there's something you want us to talk about, just hit us up on all the social media channels. Send us an email. And if you want to get some guidance and help to transform your practice and make it more of what you want, I invite you to apply to be a member of our 3D Mastermind coaching program. You can do that by going to 3d-dentists.com, and we can kind of take it from there and see if we're a good fit for each other. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week.